Well, it's a couple of days into spring, and it's been cool, but today it finally started to warm up some. It's kind of humid today, so the water's still calm, clear, and I just came down here for the first time in a couple of weeks, and they're doing some work on the grave site, which is good. And I'm not sure if it's the Park Service or somebody else doing it, but probably the Park Service, because they've kind of got responsibility for this. This is your ancestors' graveyard, and you're related to these folks. And it's down by the swimming area. And it used to not get much traffic down here, but since people started coming here and they made it a swimming spot, it gets a lot of traffic, and some of this area was getting kind of beat down, and there used to be more grave sites here. In fact, there was a couple of spots that were marked with wooden end stones, or wood markers, not stones, but end markers, and they're no longer visible. And you could see there was probably a few places, and you can find those. There's you can certain equipment, and you can find where there's a couple of different ways to do it. You can do it by just taking samples of the dirt. You can tell where the dirt was disturbed and filled back in. And of course, I don't know how deep these grave sites are, but if you go down deep enough, you can find remnants, bones and things. And it's kind of nice that they're working on it. They probably at this point should put little fences around each spot, since there's so many people coming down here nowadays. But it's nice to see somebody taking care of that. It's a good piece of history for this island. The Does and the Etheridges and Scarboroughs and a few others, Creefs, Meekins, Daniels, they all had this homesteads out here. The Does had and the Etheridges had particularly large tracts, and of course everybody, his families are all related. There wasn't that many people living down here, so but over time it's all gotten dispersed and sold off, and there's not much left to remember it by as what it was during that period of time. So it's nice to do some things to conserve some history, and it just happens to be your family's history, so that makes it even nicer. So what a beautiful day. Look at all the pollen. These flowers will be blooming soon. Yeah, history speaks to people in a lot of different ways. We can learn from history. We can reflect on history. We can get artistic inspiration from history. We can get senses of awe. It can just be entertaining, and that's in and of itself has value. It's just entertainment. So much about that long. It's like a movie playing back over whatever time period you want to look at. That's the other cool thing about history, is we can find different ways to delineate it into different categories, different periods, which just gets back to that whole idea of set theory and sets and logic and mathematics. Sets are really interesting. It seems like such a simple concept, but yet it encompasses so much for explaining the universe around us. Sets, putting things into categories, and it's other smaller categories, but yet those smaller categories can actually contain more information than the infinite set that it's within. And that's, in one way, a real hard concept to imagine for humans to think about that. But then on the other hand, it's really that the hard part is trying to cope with the idea of infinity. The idea that a set within a set, the set that's within the set, they can both be infinite sets, but the seemingly subset can be more infinite than the larger set that encompasses it. That's not as hard to cope with as the infinity itself. But anyways, it's all just fun and interesting stuff, and how it all comes together, and how we can, play some mental acrobatics with all of it. It's just part of being human, and part of the enjoyment of being human is to kind of put yourself through those different mental exercises. I wonder if our eagle's around. Well, the ospreys, the ospreys migrate, but they should be showing up here. I wonder if all the this climate that we have here, is almost enough to keep some of the ospreys around. But I guess it's just the food aspect of it is probably more certain for them to go a little further south. I don't know. But anyhow, they come back in the spring. They leave in the winter, and they come back in the spring. They nest, build their nest. Well, I love you. I love you.